So, welcome all you prospective judges and registered judges for the 2016 Technovation season. I'm excited, very excited actually, to be here with you today so we can talk more about the judging process and so that I can support you guys better as you prepare to give feedback to the teams of women around the world who have been working really hard to identify problems in their communities, develop apps to address them, and then also create business plans to help bring their ideas to fruition. So you guys are incredible for doing this, and the girls who are about this week to submit all their deliverables have been working really hard. And now's the time for you guys to come and swoop in and give them that feedback that they so richly deserve. I just want to mention right now that we are so incredibly thankful for your participation. And we almost have the requisite number of judges that we're looking for, but we're still looking for a few. So if you have any friends or colleagues that you know might be interested in joining as a judge, we'll talk about that a little bit more, and I encourage you to reach out to them. So, more about today. I am Amy Gardner. For those who are joining live, you can see me in the webcam. For those who will see the recording, you will not. So that's why I put in a picture of myself. And today, in this 1 hour we have together, we might not need the whole time, but I wanted to block that out with you guys. We're going to talk about what is Technovation, because I know some of you are seasoned hands or you've been working with teams all year, so you know a lot about it, but some of you might be totally new, and I just wanted to provide a quick overview of the program for you guys so that you have the context in mind when you judge. And then we're going to move on and talk about the structure of the competition, how you guys can navigate the platform in case some of you are new and you're not sure. And then we're going to get into the team submissions, so the expectations of what will be delivered by the teams so that you also have that bigger picture when you're looking at their submissions. And then what our expectations are for you guys as judges. And then I thought it would be really good for us to just actually take a look at one of the teams that made it to the finals last year, to look at their pitch and their demo videos so that you have a better idea of what these two things are. We can't go through their business plan and their entire thing, but I thought it would be really useful for us to take a look at some of these videos and just talk a little bit about what kind of feedback you might give, just so you have that experience at hand when you actually go and do this. And then we'll talk a little bit about constructive feedback and how to give that. So to start off, I thought I would show you guys who are newbies especially this really great clip from Leslie Chilcott's Code Girl, which just came out. It's a documentary. It came out last November or so, and it's all about the Technovation program. And Leslie Chilcott, if you don't know her, was the producer of Waiting for Superman and The Inconvenient Truth, and we were so incredibly fortunate that she took an interest in our program. So here is the overview.
Technovation Challenge.
Oops, sorry.
Technovation Challenge is a mobile app competition for girls in middle school and high school, and the prompt is to solve an issue in your community by building a mobile app.
You take something that you thought you couldn't do and you realize, like, I just had to work at it. I have this support system and I can do it and I can really affect a change in my environment. The initial chunk is really about brainstorming, paper prototyping, figuring out how big of a problem this is, doing the market research, seeing who your competitors are, and then sort of narrowing down all the features that you want in this amazing solution to something that you can actually build and prototype.
They get the basics of App Inventor to kind of get them rolling on the coding, and so that they can learn the platform and how they would actually build a prototype to begin with.
Using a block-based language, it's very visual, it's very friendly. It says, they call it low wall, so it's easy and accessible for anyone to jump over, and very high ceiling, so you can code anything.
We have some students that submit iOS apps or some students who actually program in Java for their Android apps. And all of this is based on going out into the community and getting feedback from people and seeing if what you're identifying is actually coinciding with what the rest of the community thinks.
Towards the end, you have a very nice business plan, you have a working prototype, and then you have to do a pitch and videotape it, and then you submit all of these for judging. First, is it really going to change the world? Second, does the app work? That's the technical side of it. And third, will it make money? I would say every girl in middle school and junior high should know how to solve a problem using technology. Technovation now is the world's largest technology entrepreneurship program for girls. There's no other global program that's bringing girls into technology and entrepreneurship in a cohesive way as we are.
So yeah, if you guys want to see this movie, it's I think it's available on Netflix now, which is really cool, and it might be really exciting for you to actually see that because it goes into more about what it's like to actually build these apps and do this hard work for students. It might give you a perspective into their world that you might not get otherwise. So, with that in mind, I wanted to talk about the structure of the competition. Yeah, some people have had screenings of Code Girl, and it's really fun to watch. If you guys were going to have like a judging app party where you work or with other friends who might be judges, you guys could start it off by watching Code Girl or something. Maybe order pizza and then sit down together and judge the apps, which is really fun. So I wanted to just run by some dates with you guys. The structure is pretty interesting for the challenge. It's a pretty typical structure for a competition. Right now, the teams have until Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time to submit their deliverables through the mytechnovationchallenge.org website. And if you're working with teams, I'm sure you're aware that they're racing towards, against the clock to do this. And so actually after they've submitted on the 21st, we then open up judging from April 22nd or 23rd actually. Oops, whatever the Friday is, the 22nd, sorry. And it closes May 3rd. During this period of time, there might be live pitch events in different regions. And so it's really exciting. After all of these initial events take place and the first round of judging happens, we then move into the quarterfinal judging round. And that runs, oops, I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to double check. So after that, the semifinal judging round happens May 5th through May 12th. And you're invited to not just judge during the quarterfinals, but you're also invited, and we'd love to have you judge for the semifinal judging rounds. And also, you guys are invited to come to the World Pitch, which is where our finalist teams come. There's 6 high school teams and 4 middle school teams who will be there in San Francisco and Silicon Valley during the week of July 12th or so. So keep that in mind and keep your eyes out for any invites. So we still know that some people are having a little bit of trouble navigating the platform, so I wanted to briefly touch on that. If you are someone who is just getting started and you've never been with Technovation, you can go to mytechnovationchallenge.org and register as a judge. You'll see down here to the bottom right that there's a button for judge, and you would just click that to sign up. And if you're already a registered coach or mentor, you should be able to log in, and then you'll see down here at the bottom that you can sign up and say, I want to be a judge. So it's pretty straightforward. For judges who are new to the platform, you're going to need to select a judging event in the registration form. If you've mentored a team but hadn't previously registered, we like to know where that team is located and in which division. So just like the mentors who are judging, you can edit the event from judge event till submissions close. And we also are asking everybody to sign a volunteer release because we need to have that all taken care of. It's part of the housekeeping of the program. So I would definitely do that if you haven't already. So most of you will actually be judging virtually, and whether or not you're you're involved with an event that has a local gathering, the judging still primarily occurs online. So if you're currently a coach or mentor and are participating as a judge, you'll be given apps that are outside of your region. That's to be fair and sort of good about that. So you won't be able to judge people that were in your region for that reason. If there's a live event near you, you should be able to select it in the drop-down menu. And you can go to the technovation.org/events page to also know if there are any live events near you. If you're judging for two separate events for any reason, you'll need two separate accounts to do this, and I would recommend emailing us at info@ for more information on that. So, but I think primarily most of you will be virtual judges. So that's that. So right now when you log in, you'll see that you may not have any information about judging because the students are still submitting their deliverables. But as of Friday the 22nd this week at 5 p.m., you'll be able to see that you can actually click this Judge Now button, which will take you to the apps that are kind of queuing up for you to judge. I wanted to talk a little bit about what is expected from the teams and what they're going to be submitting. So a complete submission on the right would consist of the 6 following points. So we're asking them to submit the app source code. So if they're working in App Inventor, it's going to be an AIA file or an APK file, which I'll get to later. And we would like them to submit a link. We would like them to cut and paste these two files into Google Drive and give us a link, or give you guys a link to click on so that you can access this code and make sure that they've submitted it. I'd like to mention that you do not need to be a complete programming expert in order to judge their code. We just need to know that they've submitted their source code and that they've been working on these and programming, because that's one of the goals of the program. If you look at the rubric later, and you can access it in the materials panel, you'll see that students are not actually scored based on the elegance of their code or anything like that. In the final, the finalist teams, our experts might be looking at that, but we had to have a lot of questions. Do I need to be a technical expert in order to look at the source code? And the answer to that, the short answer is no. Is GitLab okay? So we've also gotten a lot of questions about, can my students submit their code in different languages? Ideally, we would like them to submit in App Inventor, so AIA files. They can submit in Swift, they can submit in Java. There were other programs that were kind of hybrids. The first ones I mentioned were native apps, and we would really, really love those. But we know that some teams have already begun working in hybrid apps. So for this year, it's okay that they do that. Next year, we're going to get very specific about what programming languages students can submit in. So the app source code is one big thing. At another minimum, they need to be submitting their pitch video, and this is 4 minutes or so, and it's their persuasive argument for what their app is about, and why it's important, how it's different from other apps, what makes it stand out. And they also must submit a business plan. So these are the 3 minimum requirements that we're asking them to submit in order to be judged. The business plan has a few different components, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the rubric. But so you have the complete picture. A complete application or submission would actually consist of other things too, beyond the source code, beyond the pitch video, beyond the business plan. We're also asking them for a 100-word app description. We're also asking them for a 2-minute demo video. We're asking them for screenshots. So these things are pretty important. And when you're looking at the entire submission, if you only see the source code, pitch video, and business plan, that's okay. But know that their application could have been more fully rounded out. So, expectations for team and judges. We talked about the overview of team submissions. In terms of what we hope from you guys, we're hoping that you guys can judge at least 5 submissions. And typically these take around 30 minutes to look at. And so we're asking for a total of, 2 or 3 hours. And it might take you longer, it might take you a little slower, faster. It's not a race or anything, but we would like for you to at least judge 5 submissions and also to provide feedback. And we'll talk about, where you can do that online and what it might look like. I would say if you receive submissions and the video might be, 30 seconds over 4 minutes, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't be such an incredible stickler about that, but I would mention that in the notes because in the real world, teams might submit something that goes a little over. They might, be disqualified from other competitions for something like that. But some of these girls are only in middle school and they're working really hard, and I think we need to keep in perspective what we're expecting from them. So there are going to be 3 people judging each app. So you're all going to have kind of different impressions, and that's fine. But yeah, keep in mind that, 20 seconds over in a video is not necessarily the end of the world, but I would possibly write something about that in the written notes section. Okay, so what I would love for all of you to do is go into the materials panel and access the judging rubric that I uploaded there. And it would be great if you could print it out. If you can't do it now, just do it sometime in the future and look at it. You'll see that very basically it's divided into 3 sections. One is the objective score, and that includes ideation, technical sort of score, and entrepreneurial score. And in the ideation score, what we're really looking for there is, did the team identify a problem in their community that has social implications? We've seen apps that kind of help people do certain things, like find a camp, find a library, all things that are really important to neighborhoods. We've also seen apps that span to, helping reduce domestic violence. So you can expect to see apps that actually span these topics, and that's okay. Oops, thank you for adding that, Sarah. And then finally in the ideation, does the app address the problem they identified? So sometimes teams might start and they've identified a problem and then they get so interested in a different facet of the problem, or they go off on a tangent. So you're going to want to make sure that the problem that they stated is actually the one that they're working on with their app. And then you'll see in the rubric that you can get, or teams can actually get a score of up to 10 in the ideation. So when you're doing this online, you're going to see kind of a split screen. I'll just jump ahead a little and show you. Whoops. So when you go in to start judging apps, you'll see that on the right here, that this is where you actually fill in the rubric. And there's little spots that you can choose. So are you going to give it a 1? Are you going to give that a 3? Are you going to give that a 5? And each of those places that you can score will say exactly what that involves. So it's all very laid out for you when you go to do that. But I do recommend printing it out too. If you're like me, I like to have hard copies of things sometimes to help me. So that's fun. Okay, so that is the ideation part. The technical part gets 20 points, and a lot of the technical score revolves around the user functionality. So was the prototype that they submitted fully functional? Did it have any obvious bugs? Did the links work? So you'll see that on the lower side of the scores, you'll only get superficial functionality. So, and in the upper part, it's a smooth running app. There's no bugs. There's no major issues when you're using it. You'll see also, does the prototype go beyond static information? So does it access databases outside of that user's phone? Does it do this effectively? And you'll also see, does the prototype match the feature list defined in the product description? So this is interesting because a lot of students might get started writing their product description maybe earlier on in the process, but they didn't cross-reference if anything had changed down the road. So you just want to check for consistency. We see from Ashley, last year I had a couple apps that I could not get to work. Couldn't tell if it was my fault or theirs. What should I give then? I would say in that case, if you're not sure if it's something on your side of things that you can't access it, to look at the demo video to make sure that the students had a running app at one point anyway. And also write down in the notes section, like, hey, I tried to access this and I had problems, because they're going to want their app to be easily downloadable and usable. So I'd say when in doubt, check their demo video. If the team doesn't submit a demo video, then you're going to need to access it somehow. And I can talk to you a little bit about that. If the students are submitting for App Inventor, they should probably be submitting two sets of files. One is an AIA file, which is App Inventor, and that is so people can take that source code and sort of play around with and use that app. So it's kind of like being able to share it with other people so they can modify the app. Now the APK file is something that you should be able to download so that you can access the app on your own Android. So I have more information about this in the materials section. It just says how you can download these files, how you actually get access to the app. So that's one way to go about testing it if they don't have a demo video. And then getting back to the judging rubric, there's an entrepreneurial section, and that's 15 points. And if you look at the rubric, there's 5 different kind of subsections in the entrepreneurial score. And one of them is the product description. Is it vague? Is it short? Or, on the higher end, does it describe the app and the value it adds? What is that special thing about the app? It discusses potential market size. So, did they do any estimates? Did they do the calculations? Are the estimates done? On the high end of the scoring, the user groups would be defined. Everything would be clearly explained in terms of estimates. Competitive analysis is really important too. A lot of times I work with teams that think that they have a very original idea, but it turns out they didn't do much market research. They didn't realize that somebody else has the same exact thing. Other people say, okay, I know my app is not completely different from everything out there, but it also depends on the team. Why are they passionate about solving this problem? Did they find users that would find their app very useful? So some people also ask, well, should my idea have been a website instead of a mobile app? And sometimes there are websites that do similar things, but then I think you would want to ask yourself, did they use the app and the mobile device to the maximum potential? Does it use a camera? Does it use these functions that smartphones offer that you can't really do on a website? So that could be the differentiator. Finally, in entrepreneurial score, there's potential revenue and branding. So for potential revenue, you're also going to want to look for calculations. Did they do their homework on it? how much do they think that this app could go for? Would it be a free app? Would it cost something? Have they thought realistically about how they would keep their business up and running? So you're going to want to look at that, and branding. So a logo and promotional sources are included. On the low end of that, explanations are kind of sparse or non-existent. On the high end of that score, the logo and promo plans are included, and they're well explained, and it's exhaustive. So you can tell that they did all they could to think about the logo, branding, and promotion. And then finally, we have the subjective score, and that's worth 10 points. And that's, was their pitch very persuasive? Do I see a future for this app? Is it viable? Are people going to want this? And this is your gut reaction. So that's why it's the subjective score. And then there's 2 bonus points for whether the app has been published or not. And that could be to the Google Play Store, it could be the Apple App Store, it could be the Amazon App Store. There are some differences that you should know about. So I think to host an app, it costs $25 on the Google Play Store. But a lot of these hosts will charge for revenue that are brought in for apps. So that could be a reason why they didn't submit or publish their app, because they don't want to pay the hosting fee. You should definitely see if they have the APK file for App Inventor so that you can download their app onto your smartphone, onto your Android. The only one I don't think has a hosting fee might be the Amazon App Store. So students should definitely let you know through their submission whether or not it was published. And if it is, then they would receive 2 bonus points. Adriana says, during market evaluation, do we need to do some research on our own to have a reference of what is available? I would say first take a look at the student business plan and their market research. And if you feel like in the back of your mind you know of something else that exists out there that the students might not have mentioned, you could do your own research. It depends on the amount of time you have to devote to this submission process and judging. But if you really want to be thorough, yes, I would say definitely check it out for yourself, just so you're not left doubting, Aditya says, what if they have an APK but not hosted to the site? Do they get a bonus point? I would say, can we say that they published their app to make it available to the public if they only have the APK? And I would say the answer to that is no. So if you want to be safe, I would say they don't get the bonus point. But sharing the APK is very smart and clever. So you'll want to see the app for your own purposes. There's a question that came before from Leah. What if the app requires complex texting scenarios and the team worked on a simulation to demo? I'm wondering if you mean, did they use the App Inventor emulator? In which case it would be, oh no. Do you know which kind of simulator that the team might have been working on? Yeah, I'm not sure. Fake data? I'm not actually sure what the entire context is. If you could maybe write down the context, that would be helpful. Until then, okay, there's something coming in French, and I'm sad to say I'm not very fluent in French. Can someone translate what Pierre just wrote? Okay, I'm not sure. Right now, I'm gonna move forward. It would be great if you have specific questions like that to give the context. Ah, okay. So those who develop their application on an external version, how to compile it? If you look in the materials section, Pierre, there's a file that I uploaded about how to publish an app using App Inventor. So I would definitely have your team look at that if that helps. Leah writes, the team I'm mentoring is working on an app to monitor data from people with ALS and sensors, but they don't have the sensors and people available. Okay, so I would say in this case, if they have not been able to do any user research on people who actually would be using it, that might be cause for a judge to write something about that in the comment section, because if they haven't been able to test with the actual users who might use their app, then they might be left with a lot more questions, then the research has not exactly been as thorough. But it means that also that they have opportunities in the future to actually test on these user groups. And that's something I would write in the comments. They did the user research, but they can't get a real user available for demoing. I think that, that is slightly problematic in the scheme of this. So I would say that if someone were to judge that app, they would probably need to write something in the comment section, because they won't have information about whether it was effective if it wasn't kind of tested with a real audience for it. If they can get an audience who can sort of act, I don't know, this is complicated. I would say if they can get someone to test their app who could, as you mentioned, simulate having a particular issue or something, that might help. PRS, if the video passes 4 minutes. I touched on this before, Pierre. I would say that it's not a deal breaker if the video is slightly longer than 4 minutes, but if you're encountering videos as a judge that run on to 5, 6, 7 minutes, that is definite cause to write something in the comments section. Because if a team can't get their point across in the 4-minute video, which is actually a lot of time to do a pitch, then they're probably not working as effectively as they could be on their pitch. And it speaks to the fact that they would need to rehearse it more and to just kind of narrow it down and focus on the things that are really important about their app. Sharon asks, is the judging scale discrete? On a scale of 2, 5, and 10, am I constrained to give only these scores, or could I give a 3, 4, 6, etc.? I think the maximum you can give is for ideation is 5, as well as the technical score. The entrepreneurial score, it looks like you can only score up to 3. And I think that these might be rigid in the online judging. Now, if you're judging in a live event, you could probably differentiate or be more discreet and give a 4 instead of a 3 or 5. Okay. All right, Leah, I'm glad that you asked that question about the team and the simulation. I would say do the best you guys can. We know that some situations might be very particular, so that's good. Gemma asks, I think the question about 2, 5, 10 is more about the overall impression. So the subjective score. I think that if you're judging online that you might be limited to, 2, 5, 10, but I would need to double check. So I would recommend that you email info@technovationchallenge.org and ask this specific question. And in the meantime, I'll try to find the answer and let you know if you can share your email with me. I'm going to type my email in the chat room. So it's amy@technovationchallenge.org. Thanks, Gemma. Okay, another question is from Mariah. Would it be safe to rely heavier on the demo video when an app requires external dependencies such as special hardware sensors? ALS patients that may not be available to judges. I would say this team should compile a really clear demo video, because if there are people that they might not have been able to access to test on, the judge is really going to need to see how this app works. So if you can get an actor, like someone on the team who's decent at acting, to put them simulate being that user, that might be really helpful. A video is so important because it shows people how it's actually being used. So definitely keep that in mind if you're working with teams that might be struggling with something similar. A video can get across these points a lot quicker than, the description, anything like that, and it'll show how it's actually operating. So I recommend downloading in the materials section the APK file thing, and just being willing to download an APK file if you have an Android device and to test it out. It's great. If you can go beyond just looking at the demo video and actually testing it out, that would be perfect. Okay, so we talked a little bit about submitting scores. I just wanted to point out to you that some people have tried to, they've started judging and they left a partial score, and then they returned back to their dashboard to click on another app, and it didn't save the information. So what you're going to need to do is actually review the entire app and do a complete score on that so that you can move on and judge the next app. I think that said, you're able to go in after the fact, after you submit a full score, and kind of look back over what you did, what your scoring was, and reassess and change at that point. So I think the initial reason why you can't just partially score something and then come back to it later is to prevent us from having partially judged teams. So when you do go back to, after you submit scores, and here's what it looks like again, you're able to leave comments. So say this might help solve the, should I put a 2 or a 5 or something? You could score, modestly or generously, but then in the comment section, which is really important, you can kind of qualify why you gave that score. And the written comments are so important because sometimes, getting the numbers, the numerical score is really important and exciting, but knowing that someone sat down with their app and actually, took the time to think about some constructive feedback and what could be improved or changed means a whole lot to them, because they've just been spending the past three plus months working on this app and idea. So, all right. So does anyone else have any questions about how the process works on the platform? Okay, Santosh asked a good question. Who will assign the app to judge for judging? So this is done, if you're a virtual judge, you will receive apps to look at that are not in your region. That's because we don't want to skew the results in favor of a team you might have been working with or people you might know inadvertently in your region. So there's the way that you get assigned the apps is through the platform. The platform will locate an app for you that isn't close or in your region. And you'll be able to pick the apps that you want to judge. So you should see a list when you sign in and you register as a judge as of Friday. So that's the way it works. And you're not limited to 5. Jean asks, how many judges judge each app? Yes, at least 3 judges judge each app. Thanks, Ishmael. And if you guys want to judge more than 5 apps, you're more than welcome to. So, okay, so I thought one thing we do before we wrap it up Another question. How do you select the judges for pre-final and final judging in San Francisco? The judges for the quarterfinals, which are coming up on Friday, and the semifinals can all be online. The judges that we have for the absolute top 6 high school and 4 middle school teams that come to San Francisco, we generally invite very specific judges to do that. So Stephanie asks, have there been any improvements to the platform servers during submission? We had a few issues last year. Yes, I wasn't around last year, but I did hear that there were some hiccups, and we're actually working with a team to make so many improvements, and they already improved, how fast you can upload something. They're working to optimize the whole server situation. Question. I am judging in a kickoff in South Windsor, Connecticut, but I'm signed up as a virtual judge. Do I need to do anything additional for my sign up? I think all of you, whether you judge in-person events or virtual, still need to sign up as virtual judges. And even if you're judging at a live event, the scores for the team that you're looking at need to be entered electronically. So I would ask your regional ambassador or whoever is organizing that in-person event, that pitch event, how they want to be judging, because they might have their own specific ideas. They might want to have handouts or use paper copies and then transfer those scores online. So definitely do that. I think I did mention before that if you are signed up for 2 different judging events, you will need 2 separate accounts. So definitely check in at info@technovationchallenge.org about, how you would set up those 2 separate accounts. Elizabeth asks or says, I was thinking of a paper copy. It would be easier. Paper copy is something I would want, even if I was judging virtually, and then to transfer my notes and my scores. So just to touch back, when you look at an app, right where my mouse is right now is the middle. Your information's on the left. The app submission is all in the middle. So you should be able to see the different elements of that submission, like a link to their pitch video, a link to their business plan, etc. And then on the right is where you score. Whoops. Is where you score for the different areas on the rubric. So as mentioned, the ideation, the technical, and the entrepreneur. Carolyn says, I'm judging a local event and was asked to select that local event in the drop-down list, not as a virtual judge. One issue I know that some people had earlier today that we're working on fixing is that, let me find that, people were signing up, but they were not, let's see, is this it? Yes. So some judges were having some issues selecting their event. They said they couldn't see it, even though we know the event was created and it should have come down in the drop-down menu. So the regional ambassador in Minnesota, Jean, thank you, Jean, figured out the issue. Some judges were clicking the drop-down for team region, and for some reason they weren't able to choose the event. So we advise you for now not to click the drop-down menu for the team region. And just pick your event. So they were able to do it that way. So this is the workaround we have right now. Keith is asking, what if I don't have an Android device? Then I would rely on watching the demo video. You can also, some teams don't work in App Inventor. They work in Swift. So that would be for iPhones. So if there are any apps for you to judge that were made using Swift or Java or other things, you can definitely check out their demo video. So I would recommend that. Okay, so I thought we'd take a moment now, because our time is sort of wrapping up, to look at an actual pitch video from a finalist team and to talk about, how we would comment on that or how we might rate it using the judging rubric. So I'm going to play that now. And We're gonna think about that. Oops, sorry. I'll get back.
Right, I guess it's time to go home. Are you sure you're okay to drive? Didn't your mom make you get that app to make sure you're okay?
Yeah, she did. I guess I should take it. She's probably expecting a text to confirm my ticket anyway. Oh my god! They told me that they don't recommend me to drive and that I failed. I honestly thought I was okay to drive.
Most people do, and that's how they end up getting hurt. Thank you for taking the test. Although I thought you knew better than to be under the influence, I'd much rather you get home safe than drive and put yourself in danger.
Thanks for picking me up.
No problem. I'm glad you're safe. Let's go home now.
Every day in the United States, 28 people are killed as a result of drunk driving accidents. Amika's goal is to prevent people with impaired vision and slowed mental processing from driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
The user will take a series of 3 cognitive tests, including balance and reaction time, to assess the user's ability to drive. Our technology will then suggest whether or not it is safe for the user to drive to their destination.
If the user passes the test, we will warn them of the dangers of driving on the road and that they should only drive if they feel safe.
If the user fails the test, our app will give the user a few different options. The user is able to notify their emergency contacts, call a local taxi service, or use other apps like Uber. A study by researchers in Australia showed that being awake for 18 hours produced an impairment equal to a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05 and 0.1 after 24 hours. 0.08 is considered legally drunk.
According to data from Australia, England, Finland, and other European nations, all of whom have more consistent crash reporting procedures than the United States, drowsy driving represents 10 to 30% of all crashes.
By having teens take our test, we are not in any way trying to take away the responsibility given to them. We just want them to have an option for both themselves and their parents, because drunk driving does not only happen often, but it also affects the lives of many people. Some who get in their cars and never once drive impaired, yet suffer the consequences of others driving dangerously.
Our app is just a recommendation, and although it will give fairly accurate results, it only suggests the user's driving capability given their situation.
We believe our app has the potential to extend our app's focus onto adults, including the elderly. Although our app has a main focus on driving under the influence, the test is also compatible for testing people who are impaired through tiredness.
We also plan on partnering with a car company for ignition interlock features. Using these features, parents will be able to ensure that teens take the test prior to starting their car. This type of technology would separate us from other apps being developed in this field.
Our ultimate goal is to keep our peers safe and to prevent as many deaths as possible.
We feel it is crucial to keep our friends and family out of the reach from the possible effect that impaired driving has on people.
As a team, we sent out multiple surveys to the parents and received positive feedback.
Approximately 90% said our app was one they would use for their children. Team Amika is hoping to make a change in our community. And with Safeguard Driving app, we know there will be a significant difference.
All right. Does that make you want to know more? I think we should watch the demo video to see how this translates to the app.
Hello, we are Team Amika, and this video is a demonstration of our Safeguard Driving app prototype. Once the app is opened, the user will press the button that says Begin on the main welcome page. The user will be required to complete 5 consecutive tests. If a test is completed correctly, they earn 1 point. The maximum number of points that can be earned is 5 points. The next screen will take you to an emergency contact fill-in, where the user is asked to enter the phone number of their contact. The first test is the Stroop test. The color name will remain on the screen for 1 second. On the next screen, the driver will be asked to identify the color in which the text was displayed. 4 choices will be given. The second test is the arrow test. The driver is asked to identify which arrow is different from the others. He or she has 3 seconds to make a choice. The third test is the balance test. The driver must move the ball to the line by tilting the screen and must then keep the ball on the black line for 5 seconds. The arrow test is repeated. The position of the arrow which points opposite to the others will be different than it was in test 2. The Stroop test is also repeated. The color name and text font color will be different than they were in test 1. If the driver earns either 4 or 5 total points, they pass the safeguard driving test. The car's ignition system can be started. If the driver earns 3 points or less, they fail the test. The car's ignition system cannot be started, and options for getting home safely will be displayed on the screen.
Okay, guys, so did their app match their pitch video? I'm wondering what you guys think. On your gut level for the subjective score, what would you guys give this team? By the way, the team said we could use them for this exercise. In the demo, they said it would start. I'm not sure if that sentence was finished. Start ignition. Yeah, it seems like they've given thought to how they could connect to other industries and, you know, what their app could do in the future if they were to continue working on it. I really like that aspect of both their demo and their pitch videos. And it was kind of interesting to me to see, you know, how they talked about their video in the pitch video versus their actual demonstration. Sometimes teams might confuse the purpose of these two videos, and I think that this team really got it, you know. Ishmael says, I think that it would eventually partner with the ignition interlock companies, and you can easily see how that could happen from the pitch video. Yeah. Sarah gives it a 5. Is that an overall impression or technical or ideation? Maybe we should talk about ideation first. One thing I really liked about their pitch video is that they did a skit to actually, you know, put us in the perspective of someone who could be a user of their app. What else? Another thing is, you know, does the app address the problem they identified? And I thought, you know, they chose a good selection of activities in the app that could help someone who is actually possibly inebriated or tired, as I mentioned, figure out whether they're able to drive or in a good condition. Ideation is a 10. Elizabeth asked, will they have a code write-up? So yeah, in this case, I don't have their source code, but if you do look up their team when you're signed in as a coach, judge, or mentor, you can access what they submitted so you can see. So you can also access previous teams from other years. Overall pitch quality, compelling arguments for the need, but I find it hard that a teen would actually use it unless it was actually tied to their car. Yeah, I think we might agree that in the future, anything that's tied to driving would probably need to be sort of associated with the vehicle too. But I thought that it used a good feature in their cell phone too. So the one, I forget what, is it called the, I forget what it's called, the accelerometer, where you're moving the phone and you're trying to like get the ball to do a certain thing when you see it. So it kind of used a nice game feature. So a feature of video games to make it kind of fun and test different kind of skills to make sure that you could know whether you were impaired to drive. Definitely. Stephanie says, I love the idea, though prototype is excellent, needs more thinking through before going to market. These are all good comments that you could definitely add to the comment section. Overall, that was good. One of my first thoughts during the demo is that it would be hard to remember a phone number of a person to call. Would be good. So yeah, these are all really great suggestions. And it's nice to preface a comment by saying something relatively positive and then making your suggestion. Another thing that I love, something I like thinking about when giving constructive feedback is saying not yes, but rather yes and. Like, I see that you're doing this, but I think it could be better. Saying but like that really kind of puts people on the edge. So if you have a way of saying, yes, I think this is an idea, and I think it could be improved by X, Y, and Z, that might be a little more effective. Another thing, um, another thing to think about is whether they did submit everything, whether their submission was complete. In some ways, can anyone think of a good way to mention that the submission was incomplete, but encourage them to possibly work on it in the future? So a statement I might make in a comment section could be like, I see that you submitted your pitch video. I think if there had been a demo video, I would have gotten a bigger picture of how the app actually functions. Something like that. So to encourage them to think about, because they might be entering other competitions in the future, they might, so having some feedback like that really helps in a positive light. Yeah, so Ishmael writes, your pitch video piqued my interest. I would have liked to see more in your demo video. Perfect. I think that's like a really good example of some positive constructive feedback. You might be really busy, but definitely taking the time to write a sentence or two is going to mean so much to them. So that is pretty much all I have to add about this. I wish we had more time to look at others, because it's also really helpful to see what students actually submit, so you have a good idea of the level of work they're doing, and keeping in mind that these are prototypes. They're meant to be prototypes after a 3-month project like this. It would probably be pretty rare to see an app that looks so stellar that people are lining up to buy it. So definitely keeping in mind that this is a prototype will guide you through this process. So yes, the rubric is helpful. If you want to look at some resources online or do some research, if you're signed in as a mentor, coach, or judge, you can go into the team. There's a button you can push for teams, and you can do a search of teams. This one is Team Ameca, AMECK. You can see the business plan they submitted. You can see all these other aspects of their submission deliverable. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you all for coming. It was really a pleasure to have you here, and there will be a recording of this, so you can access that really soon. And we look forward to having you be judges. I can't thank you enough for the time that you're going to be spending doing this. It really means a lot to us, and it means even more to the students who submitted. So thank you guys. Bye.